Well, we are so glad that you are here. My name is Reverend Michael Rocque, and it is my complete honor to be up here and coming together as a family, as a community, and do this amazing thing that we call live our divinity. And Unity has a very unique way of doing that, which is pretty cool. And it's this idea of the thought that, first of all, that we all have within inside of us the seed, the spark of divinity. And when we start to acknowledge that and focus on it, actually, it can change our lives. Because what's happened to us all is that we have all been programmed through our, and you name it, through society, through our parents, through our grandparents, through the different places that we've been brought up, and we've been told these things about ourselves that just quite honestly aren't necessarily true. And as a result of it, we think we fit in a particular bucket, and we start living our lives thinking that we have all these limitations on us, when in truth, we're free. And when all of a sudden you start to realize that, and you start to apply metaphysics, or the study of the mind, and combine that, which is, I think, the most powerful thing ever, with your own indwelling Christ, or the spark that's inside of you, then all of a sudden you've got this powerful combination of things that you can do to change your life. And it becomes fun. And then all of a sudden we go from being a victim over here, where life is working against us, nothing is working for us, when all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, I can stand over here, and now I can become a powerful creator. And each and every one of us, all of us, have that DNA coding, that piece of us that is just waiting to be woken up. It's there. Hate to tell you this, but you can't get away from it. It's there inside of you. The thing that's beautiful about that is when all of a sudden you realize that and go, so wait a minute, let me get this right. This thing's inside of me that when I start paying attention to it, I can change my whole world. And then all of a sudden I can go from being a victim over here to where I can become a powerful creator and change my life and impact not only my life but everybody around me. That can actually happen, and the answer is yes. It's indisputable. That's exactly what Jesus did. That's exactly what the Fillmores did, and thousands and thousands of people since have done that as well. It can be a lot of fun. Your life should be a lot of fun. Your life is the greatest gift that you have. And yet, somehow, some way, someplace, a lot of us, myself included, by the way, got stuck in this idea that, woe is me, life's against me, I can't have no fun, blah, 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 right? And then all of a sudden, like, this thing happens, and it's like, wait a minute, I actually can change things. I can actually do things to empower myself and then go make a difference. And the answer is, again, yes. And so that's what we do here. And the other thing that we do, we try, to the best of our ability, is we do it together as a community. So what's starting to happen, which is, I think, the funnest thing ever, is we're starting to have these small pockets of people within our community that are coming together on a weekly basis and starting to study and share and grow together and cry together and hug each other and be with each other as they do this amazing thing called life, the spiritual journey. And what's happening is they're coming together and magic is happening. Community is happening. Healing is happening. Transformation is happening as a result of it. Because to the best of our ability, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create this environment, this place where you can be safe, where you can be held, where you can be heard, where you can be valued, where you can be appreciated, where you can be acknowledged, just as you are. Just as you are. Because we all have the same common thing within us. And yes, there's a lot of differences amongst all of us, lots of differences. Color of your skin, your sexual orientation, your preference, your religious beliefs, your political beliefs. Yes, we all have them, right? But at Unity, we do something kind of unique. What we do is we say, that is true, yes, and we want to honor and respect all of that. But you know what we're going to focus on more than anything? Unity. Unity consciousness is real. when we decide the most important thing aren't all of those differences, instead we're going to make unity consciousness be the most important thing that we can focus on, guess what? Then we get to have that experience. And instead of getting stuck in all the garbage that's going on there or why we can't get along, we focus on unity consciousness. And that, to me, is a game changer, and why when I walked in these doors over 40 years ago, I never looked back. You can come in here and you can be who and what you are, and you can be valued, heard, listened to, and respected. And we can do that because we're focusing on unity consciousness. So it's a lot of fun. So that's what we do here. We get up here, we sing together, we dance together, we laugh together, we cry together, we hug each other, and we do that. So whether you're here in person, good morning, welcome, or whether you're online, hi, we see you. We're really glad you're here this morning. So just relax, enjoy, and let's celebrate together. Metaphysics. Huh? Yeah. Metaphysics. So, many of you know that on Wednesday I'm starting a class called Applied Metaphysics for Goal Setting. And I had somebody reach out to me and say, well, Mike, can we apply metaphysics to anything in our life other than just goal setting? And of course, the answer was, well, yeah, you can do that. And then I thought, well, it might not be a bad idea to have that conversation on Sunday before you start, because in truth, many of you are joining me for that class, but some aren't. And I want to kind of be able to share that with you as well. So in case this is something that you go, maybe it's something I should look into, you have some information. So oftentimes when I do the introduction, when I come up here, I'll say something along the lines of this, that in truth, unity really is not a religion. It's not. It's really a spiritual practice. And what we do here is we actually share spiritual tools that you can use in your life to make a difference, to make a long story short. So, and just by the way, going back into the history, for those that don't know, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore never wanted a church, didn't want it. In fact, what they would do is they would say, hey, tell you what, why don't you go to your church in the morning, come see us in the afternoon, because they believed that what we're about to talk to when it came to metaphysics could apply to anybody. It didn't matter what your religious beliefs were. And so that was the study of metaphysics. That's how they started. They started off doing Sunday afternoon talks about metaphysics, right? And so during the class, we're actually going to do a deep dive into metaphysics for goal setting. But what I want to share with you today is just some general overall thoughts. What is this thing that we talk about when Mike talks about metaphysics? So, metaphysics. So let's talk about metaphysics. So according to a book by one of my favorite authors and teachers, Paul Hesselbeck, who's basically legendary in the Unity community, in his book, Heart-Centered Metaphysics, he says, metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that is concerned with the fundamental nature of reality and being. It is a broader sense of study of metaphysics, areas that are concentrated, not concerned, concentrated or considered, to be above and beyond the physical senses. So we're talking about this idea that we're going beyond the physical, metaphysical, beyond the physical, and we are returning to something I talked about a few weeks ago called first principle. In other words, where does it all start? And Unity has a really simple thought about that is, boom, right here. Our thoughts. Pretty powerful things, right? In fact, in the 12 Powers of Man, Charles Fillmore said, if you would bring forth the very best that is in you, study the methods of Jesus, study them in all of the details, get to the spirit of everything that is written about this wonderful man, and you will find the key to the true development of your soul, conscious mind, subconscious mind, and your body. I'm going to be spending a lot of time talking today about your conscious mind versus your subconscious mind. There's a huge difference, and if you're going to do this work, you need to understand the difference between the two of them. He goes on to say, if you'll carry out his system, I'm going to come back to that in a minute, because Jesus had a system There will be revealed to you a new person, a person of whom you never dreamed, existing in the hidden realms of your own subconscious. So, what's Fillmore really saying? That if you start to pay attention to your consciousness and your subconsciousness, what happens is you'll have access to something that's inside of each and every one of us. And that part of you, you will reveal a whole new person that's there. It's always been there. It never hasn't been there. It's impossible for it not to be there. So for some of you that are kind of going, maybe that applies to them, but it doesn't apply to me, wrong answer. It applies to you. Just because of who and what you are. Which is an amazing, beautiful, incredibly brilliant spark of the divine. Each and every one of you are that. I don't care about your past. I don't care about what you know or what you don't know. I don't care about what you've done or what you haven't done. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. Right? And so, again, what does Fillmore say? Number one, there's a system. There's a system? Yeah, there's a system. And number two, if you'll start to pay attention, you'll find the key to the true development of your soul, your conscious mind, and subconscious mind, and Fillmore even went on to say even your body, if you start using this system. So let's talk about this system this morning, okay? I first of all want to talk about the tools of creation. What are the tools of creation? In other words, okay, great a minute. I'm kind of buying this thing a little bit, Mike, a little bit, not quite sure yet. So you're telling me that there's something inside of me, and if I start paying attention to my conscious and subconscious mind, and I start using this system, so what's going on here? What I want to say is that actually each of us have what I'm going to refer to as the tools of creation, and you can use these tools, well, you're using them whether you know it or not. It's just the question is, are you doing it consciously or not? Or are you doing it unconsciously? So what are the tools of creation? They are our thoughts. They are our words. They are our actions. So just remember that. The tools of creation, the things that we can use to create in our life, thoughts, our words, and our action, those are the tools of creation. Right? So, when your thoughts, your words, and your actions are in alignment with what you're wanting to create in your world, boom, there's the rocket. Taking off, boom, we are going in that direction. However, what happens when they're not? Then it looks like the guy sitting behind his computer grabbing his head. Have any one of you been there before? We all have. We all have. Let's just get real, right? And so then all of a sudden you go, okay, wait a minute, I get it. There's a system, and we have these tools of creation, which are called our thoughts, our words, and our actions. And they are in alignment with what it is that we're trying to create, or they're not in alignment with what we're trying to create. Right? If they're in alignment, we generally feel good, everything's happy, things are moving. And when they're out of alignment, then what happens is we feel, oh, I don't know, anybody ever feel stuck? Or we feel like things just aren't happening, and it's kind of like, what is going on here? What's wrong? And what I will tell you, especially with my life as a life coach, my practice as a life coach, I can almost guarantee you that if I really sit down and be honest, if you'll be honest with yourself and go, okay, what are my thoughts, what are my words, what are my actions? In those areas of your life where you're struggling, something's off. Almost guarantee it. 99.99999%. Something is off a little bit. Either a little bit or a lot of bit, depending on what the circumstances are. And so I really want to spend some time doing a little bit more about thoughts, because that is where the majority of the hang-up is in this, right here. That's where it is. Certainly, if you study Fillmore's, you will realize that really what they're talking about is your mindset when it comes to these things. And I'm going to reference the story of Myrtle. Everybody's heard it, but still, Myrtle had tuberculosis. All of a sudden, in that day and time, that was a death sentence. She was going to be dead. And all of a sudden, she said, well, that's not going to work for me. She goes and she sees E.B. Weeks have a talk, and in that talk, Myrtle all of a sudden realized and used a powerful affirmation, and that is, I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness. So Myrtle all of a sudden realized that she had some stinking thinking going on between her ears about who and what she was and what that meant to her physically. And so she thought she was frail, she was weak, she wasn't strong, and she went around her entire life telling herself that, and voila, guess what manifests? Tuberculosis. That's what happened, right? And so when it comes to your thoughts, unity, the third principle, unity has 5 principles. The third one is called the law of mind action. What does that say? It says you better be paying attention to your thoughts because those things create things. The first thing it says is, okay, slide. Jim, might need some help here, buddy. There we go. We create our experience by the activity of our thinking. Next slide. Everything in the manifest realm has its beginning in thought. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. And we don't manifest every single thought that we have, only those we infuse with our power and faith and imagination. So don't worry if you occasionally think, oh my God, what if? It's not like poof, there it goes. There's this thing called a buffer in there. Thank God, right? There's a buffer. And so not everything we think, but what I want to leave you with when you're thinking about, well, geez, what unity, I don't know, like what is it? It's we're thinking about what we're thinking about. We're thinking about what is going on between here, because that creates our reality. We believe this, we believe it, we believe it. A huge part of unity is that. Next slide. So let's talk about this thing. So thoughts are a big thing, right? But then the other thing that unity says, which is really interesting, is that we have 3 minds. And you're thinking like, oh my God, I can't keep track of the first one. How am I going to keep track of the 3 of them? So let's talk about the 3 minds for a minute. The 3 minds, your conscious mind. We're having a conversation. Joan and I are chatting. What's happening? Consciously, my brain is paying attention to what's happening. I know what's going on. In other words, I know what's happening in my mind. That's called your conscious mind. Then we have our unconscious or subconscious mind. So if you look at human development, especially when it comes to your brain, you'll understand from the years of 0 to 7, roughly, what happens is we're taking in information, we're like this huge sponge. There's no filter whatsoever. But at a certain point in time, what happens is our brain goes, you know, you run a lot of patterns, you run a lot of habits, you do everything that we don't need to have this thing wide open. And if we could put it somewhere so that we don't always have to have it running, and then we could basically just have in our conscious mind what we need to do to interact on a day-to-day basis, that would be a really good thing. And it does sound good, right? Doesn't that sound amazing? Well, wow. So I don't have to have this thing running 24/7. I can take this pocket of information, I can set it over here in your subconscious mind, and I'm only going to have access to it every once in a while. Sounds like a great deal, but we're going to talk about in a minute why that might not be such a great idea. And then we have our superconscious mind. That is what? It's our divinity. It's our divinity. And I'm going to spend a lot of time going into the superconscious mind in the class, and I don't mean to ignore it because it's super, super, super important that we, especially in unity, especially when we do the spiritual journey, especially as we go into our awakening, that we are aware of the superconscious. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. Next slide. Next. Cool. So then you got to ask your question, okay, well, great. So which one is running me? I've got these 3 different minds. Thoughts are important. Which ones are running me? I've got good news and I got bad news. Right? Here's the thing. These are estimates. Most experts will tell you that your subconscious mind is running you 95% of the time, and in truth, you are really only functioning with a conscious mind 5% of the time. So what does that mean? In a sense, until you slow down and start to pay attention to what you're thinking and why you're thinking it, Your subconscious mind is running your life, and that means, in a sense, that you're showing up and you are on autopilot and you're just like, right? So in other words, you're stuck. You're basically stuck in these loops, because what's in that subconscious mind, more than likely, are survival patterns and habits that you had when you were a kid. We all developed them. And I don't care if you lived in the greatest family on earth, good for you, or if you lived in, let's say, not such the greatest planet on earth. We all develop these survival tactics that keep us alive, and we should be grateful for them, because you're all sitting here right now. So it's not like these were bad things, but these are what we developed. There's only one problem with that, and that is, as you become an adult, those same things that you did as a kid to basically get you through whatever it is that you went through don't help you. In fact, they can harm you, especially if you're trying to live your life and do certain things. So they keep you stuck because these patterns are in your subconscious mind. So what's happening is you're walking around through life, and we're constantly being hit with our subconscious patterns that are just running and running and running and running and running. And until we slow down enough and start taking a look at what's going on in those subconscious patterns, you're going to be stuck in these loops. Anybody ever been stuck in a loop? We all have. If you're saying no, you're just not being, you're not paying attention, so you're unconscious. Sorry, that's how it works. All right, so next slide. The problem is, the majority of the time, we don't know what or why we are thinking, or what we are thinking. So that could be said a little bit better, but the bottom line is we don't know what we're thinking, truthfully, or why we're thinking it, truthfully. So in other words, this thing is just going on. The subconscious mind is always going on. It's always running these patterns. And as a result, we are acting and reacting in ways that may or may not be good. But the point is that we don't know in most cases what we're thinking and why we're thinking that, right? Next slide. The famous saying from Carl Jung, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. I'm going to read that again. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. Again, what's happening is you've got all these unconscious patterns that are ruling and controlling your life, and until you start to look at some of this stuff, slow down enough, then what happens is we stay on autopilot, and we keep reacting the same way over and over and over and over and over again. Are we clear? Everybody got that? Making sense? Good. So then what's the solution? Go ahead. Simple. You make sure your thoughts are in alignment with what you're wanting to create in your life. So you slow down enough to realize, what am I thinking about this particular thing that I'm trying to do, and is it in alignment with what I'm trying to create? Next one. Choose to start thinking consciously. Yeah, decide to live a conscious life. Decide to all of a sudden go, yeah, I'm going to make some decisions on what I want to think about this thing, instead of going back to these old patterns that have run my life for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I'm going to do things differently. And that's how we start doing things differently. We come up with some new thoughts about it. Next. And then just realize how powerful your thoughts are. They are creating your entire reality. And then when all of a sudden you start to think about that, it's like, oh, you mean I can start to change this? And the answer is yes, you can start to change it. You can. Right? Next slide. So in a sense, what's happening is, I want you to think about it. This is exactly what the Fillmores did. It's exactly what Jesus talked about. Exactly. The system is, now we're going to switch it to where we're taking what's in our subconscious mind and we're bringing it up out of our subconscious mind and putting it into our conscious mind. So we're flipping it. That's what happens when you wake up, folks. That's what this journey is. It's your awakening. What's happening is you're becoming aware of what's in your mind, and all of a sudden, when you start to become aware of what it is that you're thinking, you can do something about it. That's where the power is. But if you don't slow down enough to listen to what's going on inside of your mind, you don't get to do that. Sorry, but that's the reality. That's how it works. But the good news is what? We've got a system. We've got a plan. What is the plan? Start paying attention to your thoughts. And I'm not going to go into some of the deeper topics about thoughts, but believe me, I can. When we start talking about trauma and some of the other things that get us stuck here and there, and I'm not making light of any of that stuff. That's deep, deep stuff I'm fully aware of. But in a sense, I just wanted to show you that you do have the opportunity to flip the switch and go from being mostly conscious to having a little bit in your subconscious mind. And when you do that, things are going to change. Things are going to change for you. Especially when, and remember, I don't have the superconscious out there, because in truth what starts to happen is you start to lean on your superconscious here. God, even more. Don't ever forget God. Don't ever forget God. Don't ever forget God. Right? Because that's what all of this is. Right? So, in a sense, we've got some work to do. Right? And you don't have to be afraid of it. You don't. Some people are so freaked out about it. It's like, oh my God, what's in there? It's like, I don't know. Let's go figure it out. Let's talk about it, right? Next. All right, your words. So let's talk about your words for a minute. Next. So your words. Next. They have energy and they have power. They have energy, they have power. They contain a vibrational quality. Finally, they can be directed. Now, for all of, how many people actually believe that? How many really do believe it? Okay, not everybody's hands up, so we are going to do a little bit of an experiment. I want you, just for a second, I want you to close your eyes. I don't care. I want you to imagine somebody in your eyes mind. In your mind. Okay? I want you to just quietly tell them, I love you. And I want you to feel that. So just quietly, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And feel that. Okay? Now, I just want you to say something different. Now I want you to imagine saying, I don't like you. I don't like you. I don't like you. And I just want you to feel that. Feel it. Okay, you can open your eyes. Shake it off. Did you feel a difference? Can you feel a difference? Of course you can. Your words have power, and you can direct them. They have a vibrational quality. You need to know that. We can't sit there and walk around and say, I want whatever, and then behind the scenes going, want. There's a disconnect, right? So the problem, our words are often out of alignment with what we're wanting to create in our life, right? We often use our words unconsciously, and we don't think that they matter. And so we're just want. We fail to realize how powerful our words are. So, we often direct our words in the wrong direction. Yeah, so in other words, we're saying we want this in our life, and yet we're sitting there saying the opposite of what we're wanting in our life, because we're complaining or moaning and groaning or doing whatever. In other words, we're focused on the wrong thing, and we start telling people that. So what's the solution? First of all, make sure your words are in alignment with what you're wanting in your life. Again, alignment, alignment, alignment. Use your words consciously, right? Realize how powerful your words are, and direct your words consciously. How do we do that at Unity? Oh, I don't know. Prayer? Oh, I don't know. Affirmations? Oh, I don't know. Denials? So in other words, does Unity have a way for us to basically use our words and direct them? Yes. That's how we do it. And certainly when you look at the history of Unity, the entire thing was created because the Fillmores knew that, and they wanted to create something that could help people heal and change their lives. And so, boom, there you go. They started to speak into it. Okay? The last tool of creation is actions. So your actions are often out of alignment with what we're wanting in our life. Your actions also contain a vibrational quality, absolutely. And your actions can also be directed. Yes, they can. The problem with your actions, they're often out of alignment with what you're wanting in your life. We are often taking actions unconsciously. We fail to realize how powerful our actions are. And last but not least, we often direct our actions in the wrong direction. So take a goal, whatever you're wanting to create in your life, and then actually ask yourself, yeah, but are my actions in alignment with what I'm wanting to create in my life? And often what we'll find is that there's some misalignment, right? There's misalignments within that. So what's the solution? And I don't know if you're getting this or not, but you notice how we're kind of following a pattern with all the 3 tools of creation. Make sure your actions are in alignment with what you're wanting in your life. Pretty simple. Take actions consciously. Make sure that you're doing what it is that you want to do in your life. You're staying on track. Realize how powerful your actions are, and then direct your actions consciously. And the way that we do that is around, in this case, especially when it comes relevant to my class that I'm going to teach, it's by goal setting. That's how we do that, right? So, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Metaphysics. What is metaphysics? Remember, metaphysics is beyond the physical. We're going to the first principle, the thing that creates everything. Unity believes that's it right here, our thoughts. But there's also other things that we take a look at. So we have these 3 things. They're called thoughts, our words, and our actions. And when we start to pay attention to that, and we start to get into some of what's going on in here, then we can actually change our life. And that's where it becomes super duper powerful, right? When it comes to thoughts, I love to read people who had the thoughts that I would like to emulate, like Jesus. I and the Father, Mother are one. I'm one with God, right? That would be a really cool thing to walk around and think. That would be a really cool thing to believe in. The Fillmores had in all their writings, all their materials, there are hundreds of affirmations, right? But it's actually directing those thoughts like, this is how I want to think. I was reading the other day something that said when it came to Jesus, the reason when he got on the boat and the water was coming up and the storm was coming on, the reason that he was create the miracles is because he never, ever thought that he was separate from the divine. So when Jesus saw the storm, the way that this was explained to me is like, we often look at things in our life as if it's more powerful than we are. That consciousness didn't exist in Jesus. Didn't even cross his mind. So when all of a sudden he was presented with something, a storm, somebody that was dead, ran out of some wine, right? Jesus never went to, well, I can't do anything about it. Ever. He stood in that moment and realized he was connected with his divinity, and then realized that he had everything that he needed right with him. In other words, he was not separate from God. And he was able to walk into those moments and all of a sudden change things because he had that kind of power and he understood it. Well, I don't know about you, but I kind of liked his gig. Like, pretty cool, right? And then what did he say to us? You can do this. You can do this. That's what he said. And better. But we don't have to. I get kind of fired up here. But the truth is, we don't have to do anything. But if you really want to take your awareness and your life and do something and go from being a victim into a powerful creator, that's what this process is. The system is coming in here and removing all the crap that you didn't even put in there. That's the thing that's mind-blowing to me. You didn't put it in there. It came from your parents, your grandparents, society, teachers, preachers. That's where it all came from. And it's almost like, I don't know, I think it's kind of unfair that we've got that stuff in there. It's like, I didn't put it in there. No, I know, but it's there. So you can either look at it and go, woe is me, or you can go, well, how about we change that? I don't know about you, but I like the idea of changing it a whole lot better than I like being stuck with something that I didn't put in there in the first place. And it doesn't make me a victim. It just means, okay, I chose to learn a few things when I came down here, and now guess what? I'm going to rewrite that script. I'm rewriting it, and you can rewrite it. And that's what we do here. So, welcome to Unity. That's what we do here. We change. We look at the things that are keeping us stuck. We do some work on that, and there's a lot of different ways. And by the way, there isn't one way. We all have our own way of doing it. There's a gajillion healing modalities out there, and they're growing more and more and more every day. I'm exposed to a lot of them. And every day I look at another one and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That's incredible. It looks powerful. Yeah, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. And so one of the things is figuring out what works for you, and what works for you is going to be just a little bit different than what works for me. But ultimately what's going to happen is the goal is to let go of this garbage so that we can stand here, put our hands on our heart, and just exude your divinity. Because you stand in it and you be with God and then do this magical dance, and it can be a lot of fun. So, having said that, thank you for coming here this morning. We are so glad you're here. You are amazing. You are beautiful. Each and every one of you is a magnificent reflection of the divine. Even just being who and what you are right now is a gift to me and to everybody else here. And so for that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for participating in the service and everything else that you do here at Unity Spiritual Community of Grand Rapids. It is my honor and pleasure to be here when I get to spend time with you. It is one of my greatest gifts, and I mean that so sincerely. So, have a great day, and God bless you. Thank you.